Rizwan Gachgel. My code name is Markaz Botam. My father's name is Sabri. My mother's name is Fatma. And I am from Shirnak. I joined the organization in March 2014. I was with the hostages in Brusk Cave in the Siane region of Gara. There were 8 of us. We couldn't see outside because the tunnel was long and zigzagged. We waited there until 7 o'clock and then changed position. But then we saw the hostages on the ground. They had been shot in the head. I could hear the soldiers outside calling for us to surrender. So I did. I went outside and I surrendered. I had heard the Gara field commander, Juma Bilikli, giving orders to someone called Suraj. He said, if there's an operation here, none of the hostages must live or go back to their families. I heard him give the instructions. I heard him say, kill them there. I heard this with my own ears.
Bryza, who joins us from Istanbul. He's a former US ambassador to Azerbaijan. Welcome to the News Hour. I wanted to get, first of all, your reaction to these first-hand video testimonies of PKK terrorists.
Sure. Well, they're totally credible, they seem. They're chilling. I mean, I just can't imagine what it was like for those 13 hostages being kept there for so long and then what happened. And you know, I would hope that now people will believe better what the PKK, or understand better what the PKK is. But I worry that in Washington, and as we just saw in Europe, there's confusion. The PKK has been successful in lobbying and in sowing confusion about its name, whether it calls itself the YPG in Syria or PJAK in Iran or PKK in Turkey. It's been able to confuse people, and I don't know that that these very credible confessions are going to change that.
And how do you break through that fog of confusion that you mentioned? Because the EU has designated the PKK as a terrorist organization.
Yeah, it has. And by the way, the United States deserves a lot of credit for that, because at that time I was overseeing U.S.-Turkey relations at the State Department back in the mid-2000s, and we had to do a lot of convincing of our European allies. And it worked. But I think in this case, what you're hearing is that the European allies don't necessarily view the HDP as a political party, as part and parcel to the PKK. And Turkey has a different view.
And let's talk about the US. Given these first-hand video revelations from the PKK terrorists, what could be the ramifications on US-Turkey relations given the initial response that we saw from the US?
Well, I'd like to say that it's going to lead to a thoroughgoing change in the U.S. attitude toward the YPG, for example. But I don't know that it will. I mean, having been, in the U.S. diplomatic service for so long and having written many press statements, first of all, I couldn't imagine writing one like the first one, where the press spokesman said, if proven to have been the PKK, then we're condemning this attack. But by the same token, I think it was pretty clear that Ambassador Satterfield the next day, and then Secretary of State Blinken tried to repair that initial damage. So my guess is Washington thinks the issue is behind them. And if I were Turkey, I would definitely would keep reminding the U.S. in bilateral discussions that, see, we know what we're talking about with the PKK, and why don't you believe the fact that the YPG is the PKK? It's the same organization, just in a different location with a different name.
I find it so interesting, what you said earlier about that confusion. What can Turkey do to convince the US that the PKK is the YPG? What else can they do?
I think the overall mood in U.S.-Turkey relations needs to change. So I'm writing for an article I'm writing about U.S.-Turkey relations. I went back and read a Washington Post story from November of 2019 when President Erdogan was visiting President Trump in the Oval Office. And in that case, President Trump had a group of Republican senators, so senators from his own party, that he invited to explain to President Erdogan how they were not going to allow President Trump to avoid putting sanctions on Turkey because of the S-400 issue. And in that article, one of the senators said it was very strange that President Erdogan showed a video about the Kurds in which he tried to make the Kurds, our allies in Syria, look dangerous. Now, that senator was being sincere. He really believes that the YPG is the sort of democratically selected leadership of all of Syria's Kurds. How you clear that misunderstanding is, I don't know the simple formula, but I know there has to be a coming together, a strategic sort of renewal on the S-400 issue to get then the Washingtonians to open their mind and realize to listen to Turkey that the YPG is the PKK. Right now, there's just no trust between Washington and Ankara in a grand political sense.
Matthew Bryza, thank you so much for that analysis, former US ambassador to Azerbaijan.